Before we get into this, I want to say something quickly. This is exactly the kind of thing I help people with through my online coaching. Not in a way where I'm trying to control their life, and not in a way where I'm telling people they can never go out, never drink, and never enjoy themselves. I mean it in a real life way. Because most people do not fail because they're lazy. They fail because they're putting in the effort, but they're missing the blind spots that keep slowing their progress down. And one of the biggest blind spots, especially for people who train hard and want better recovery, is alcohol. Yes, you heard me correctly. Now, I'm not making this video to be dramatic. I am not here to shame anyone. And I am definitely not pretending nobody should ever drink again. What I do want to do is give you a more honest way to look at it, because a lot of people only think about alcohol in terms of calories, social life, or maybe how they feel the next morning, but they do not really think about what it does to sleep. And if you care about performance, body composition, energy, hormone health, training quality and recovery, then sleep is not some small detail. Sleep is one of the main things holding all of that together. So let's talk about it properly. A recent systematic review on healthy adults looked at how alcohol affects sleep, and one of the main takeaways was this: high doses of alcohol may reduce the time it takes to fall asleep, but that likely comes with more REM sleep disruption later in the night. REM is the rapid eye movement sleep, the stage of sleep where your brain is very active, your dreaming is strongest, and a lot of important recovery processes happen for your mind, mood, memory. So when REM gets disrupted, sleep may not feel as restorative. That point is simple, but it matters a lot, because a lot of people confuse falling asleep faster with sleeping better. And those are not the same thing. That's really the whole issue. People have a few drinks, they get into bed, and they knock out quickly. So naturally they think, great, that helped. But the problem is, what feels helpful at the beginning of the night can still be costing you later in the night. And that is where people get caught out, because alcohol can create the impression that it improves sleep, when in reality, the sleep architecture after that may be worse, especially when REM is disrupted. So when someone says alcohol helps me sleep, what they often mean is alcohol helps me switch off faster. That is not the same thing as quality sleep. And it is definitely not the same thing as quality recovery. The difference matters, because recovery is not just about being in bed for a certain number of hours. Recovery is about what your body and brain actually get from that sleep. Did you wake up fresh? Did you feel restored? Did your body get what it needed? Did your brain get what it needed? Did you come out of night feeling sharper, more stable, and ready to train? Or did you just spend hours in bed and still wake up feeling flat? That's the conversation people need to start having, because so many people are doing the visible work. They're training, they're trying to eat better, they're taking supplements, and they're spending money on the little things. But then they ignore one of the biggest recovery variables in their week. And that's where progress starts leaking. Not all at once, not in some dramatic way, just gradually, quietly. You don't even feel that. You feel a little more tired, a little less switched on, a little less motivated. Your session feels slightly off. Your recovery feels average. You're not awful, but you're not great either. And for a lot of people, that becomes normal. That's the part I think is important. A lot of people are not operating badly enough to panic. They're just operating below their potential, so often they stop noticing. That is the dangerous place to live if you care about results. Because once average starts feeling normal, you stop asking better questions. You stop looking at the real cause. You just assume that maybe you need more discipline, more caffeine, more motivation, or a tougher plan. But sometimes the issue is not that you need more. Sometimes the issue is that you're disrupting the recovery you already need. And alcohol can be a huge part of that. Now, I want to be fair here. This is not about acting one drink ruins your life. Because it doesn't. This is not about pretending every social event destroys your physique. It doesn't. And this is not about making people feel guilty for being human. That is not helpful. This is about understanding trade-offs. That is a much more mature way to think. Because once you understand the trade-off, you can make better choices. You stop being emotional about it. You stop being defensive about it. You stop using the excuse of balance when what you really mean is, I don't want to look honestly at my habits. And instead, you just become aware. You say, right, if alcohol helps me fall asleep faster, but likely disrupts REM later in the night, then I need to stop thinking of it as a sleep aid. That is a smarter perspective. And this matters because sleep is not just about feeling sleepy. Sleep has structure, sleep has stages, sleep has quality. So if something helps you lose consciousness faster, but reduces how restorative that night feels or functions, then that matters. And again, this is where I think a lot of people lose ground without realizing it. They judge sleep by one thing only: how fast did I fall asleep? But that is a terrible standard on its own. That's like judging a training program only by how hard it feels in the first 10 minutes. It tells you almost nothing about the full result. What matters is the whole night. What matters is how you come out of it. What matters is whether your sleep actually supported recovery or just looked like it did on the surface. And that's why this topic is bigger than just alcohol and sleep. It's really about honesty. It's about whether your lifestyle actually supports the goals you say you care about. Because so many people say that they want to build muscle, they say they want to get leaner, they say they want more energy, they say they want better recovery, they say they want to feel sharper. But then they keep living in ways that quietly work against all of that. Not aggressively, just consistently enough to stall things. That's where coaching becomes valuable. Not because people need someone to babysit them, not because they need someone shouting at them, and not because they need a strict life with no freedom. They need someone objective, and that is the key word. Someone who can look at their week and say, this is where your results are leaking. This is where you think you're doing fine, but you're actually making things harder than they need to be. This is where your effort is not matching your lifestyle. That is useful because most people do not need more information. They need better interpretation. They need context. They need structure. They need someone who can help them connect the dots between what they do on Friday night and how they feel on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, even through the next block of training. That is a completely different level of awareness. And once people get that awareness, things start to change. Now, let's bring this back to the average person listening. Maybe you're not a competitive athlete. Maybe you're not trying to become elite. Maybe you just want to look better, feel stronger, have more energy, and actually get results from the effort you're already putting in. Then this still matters. In fact, it probably matters more than you think, because when people are not professionals, they usually have less margin for error. They already have work stress. They already have a busy schedule. They already miss sleep sometimes. They already struggle with routine. So if sleep is already under pressure, adding something that may make the night feel easier at the start but worse later on is not a small thing. That can be enough to make the whole week feel harder. Harder to wake up, harder to train well, harder to stay consistent with food, harder to regulate appetite, harder to stay focused, harder to show up like the person you say you want to be. That is why I always say results are not just built in the gym. They are built in the decisions around the gym. Your bedtime matters, your weekends matter, your social habits matter, your recovery habits matter, and your self-awareness matters. Because if you're always trying to fix performance on the surface, but you refuse to address the habits underneath, you will stay frustrated. You will keep feeling like you're working hard without getting the full return. And that is one of the worst feelings in fitness. Doing a lot, trying hard, staying busy, yet still feeling like something is missing. A lot of the time, what is missing is not another trick. It's not another supplement. It's not another challenge. It is not another fat burning anything. It is better fundamentals. That's it. Better fundamentals done consistently. And sleep is one of the biggest fundamentals there is. So if alcohol is interfering with that, even while making you think it is helping, then that deserves attention, not panic. Just attention. That's an important difference because again, I'm not interested in extreme messaging. Extreme messaging sounds exciting, but it usually does not help people. What helps people is clarity. So the clear message here is this. Alcohol may make it easier to fall asleep at the start of the night, especially at higher doses, but that does not mean it is improving sleep quality overall because the review suggests it likely worsens REM sleep later on. That's the message. Simple, useful, honest. And once you understand that, you start making more intelligent decisions. You might decide to drink less often. You might decide to drink less in one sitting. You might stop using alcohol as a shortcut when you feel wired at night. You might protect certain nights more carefully when recovery matters most. You might start planning your week in a way that actually supports your goals. None of that is extreme. That is just being switched on. That is just acting like your goals are real. And honestly, that is where a lot of people need support. Because knowing something and applying it are two different things. A person can watch 10 videos on sleep and still keep repeating the same habits. A person can say they care about recovery and still keep undermining it every weekend. A person can have good intentions and still not have a system. That is why coaching matters, because sometimes you do not need more hype. You need someone to look at routine and help you clean it up. You need someone to help you see the patterns you have normalized. You need someone to help you stop negotiating with the same habits that keep holding you back. And the truth is, Most people are closer to good results than they think. They do not need a whole new life. They usually just need better alignment. Their training needs to line up with their recovery. Their recovery needs to line up with their goals. Their habits need to be lined up with the identity they say they want. That is where results begin to feel smoother. That is when momentum comes from. And that is why I wanted to make this video. Not to tell you alcohol is evil, not to tell you to live in a bubble, but to help you see that some habits feel harmless because the downside is subtle. And subtle downsides are often the ones that do the most damage over time because people tolerate them for years. They never really challenge them. They never really question them. They just adapt around them and wonder why they never feel their best. So if you're listening to this and thinking, that actually sounds like me, good. That awareness is useful because awareness gives you a choice. You can keep treating sleep like an afterthought, or you can just start respecting it like the performance tool it really is. You can keep telling yourself that knocking out fast means you slept well, or you can just be more honest and look at the full picture. You can keep guessing why your recovery feels average, or you can finally start addressing the habits that influence it. That is where better progress starts. And that is where better coaching helps, because a good coach is not just there to tell you what workout to do. A good coach helps you understand your behavior. A good coach helps you spot what is costing you. A good coach helps you make your lifestyle work with your goals instead of constantly fighting against them. That is the opportunity. If you want better results, better recovery, better structure, or a more honest view of what is actually holding you back, that is exactly what my online coaching is built for. Not for people looking for magic, not for people looking for motivation for 2 days, for people who are ready to tighten things up properly, understand their habits better, and finally get more out of the effort they are already giving. Because at the end of the day, most people do not need to do everything. They just need to stop letting the important things slip. And sleep is one of those important things. So if alcohol has been one of those habits you never really questioned, start questioning it. Look at it properly, look at it honestly, because if it helps you fall asleep faster but likely disrupts REM later in the night, then it is affecting more than most people realize. And once you understand that, you can make better choices, recover better, and actually give your body the support it needs to perform the way you want it to. And if you want help building that kind of structure into your week, that is exactly where my online coaching comes in. Not to pressure you, not to sell you a fantasy, just to help you close the gap between working hard and actually getting the result your effort deserves. And if you made it this far, thank you guys for watching. Until next one, stay safe, stay healthy, stay sexy, and peace. I'm out. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because it helps a lot and it will make me happy. Thank you guys for watching.